The baby chimpanzee was being swept away in the churning, muddy water. The river, bloated by a sudden, brutal storm that had overwhelmed the drainage system of the rainforest, had transformed into a terrifying liquid fist. All across the area, the sound of the water roared like a massive, wounded beast. The dim light under the canopy only added to the gloomy, heavy atmosphere. The tiny infant, its black fur slick, was desperately clinging to a smooth, water-worn rock. The brutal, cold force of the current weakened its small fingers with every violent push. It was a perfect picture of absolute fear and helplessness. Its wide eyes, reflecting the fierce brown of the water, searched for rescue that simply could not come from the river itself. On the high bank, the troop of chimpanzees watched, their horror cementing them to the edge. Their cries, which began as frantic roars of protest, morphed into sounds of pure, echoing despair. Their leader, a powerful alpha male with dark fur and rippling muscles, pounded his chest repeatedly. It was a primal, powerful drumbeat of grief, frustration, and utter rage. The raw terror of the jungle hung heavy in the air. It was clear that no creature, primate or large animal, could survive venturing into that current. Yet they were forced to watch, capable of nothing but screaming. Just when all hope seemed lost, an unexpected pair of allies appeared. The man was Liam, a seasoned wildlife photographer who knew this terrain like the back of his hand. And at his side was Shadow, a loyal, powerful, and keenly observant Labrador retriever. Liam and Shadow stood rooted to the bank, witnessing the silent, agonizing battle for life. Liam, who had seen countless life and death moments in nature, immediately cycled through every possible solution in his mind. He shouted encouragement to the baby chimpanzee, a weak, useless sound against the flood's roar. He frantically grabbed a long but brittle branch, attempting to extend a lifeline. But the absolute impersonal force of the water stole the tool instantly, twisting it away like a straw, nearly dragging him into the lethal undertow. He even unwound a thick rope from his pack, knowing the futility, yet feeling the desperate urge to act. All his technical, human-led solutions were useless against the natural antagonist, the river. Liam was out of options. He was overwhelmed by the cold, indifferent power of the torrent. He sank to his knees in the slick mud, his heart heavy with the certainty of imminent tragedy. He tightly held Shadow's neck and whispered a desperate plea.
Shadow, don't you dare.
Stay, Shadow, don't you dare. But the Labrador retriever, entirely focused on the small black speck in the water, appeared not to hear his master. Shadow's dark amber eyes flicked between the raging river and his owner one last time. A look of calm, unwavering resolve. Was no hesitation, no fear, only the instinctive knowledge that a life was in danger. Shadow was not acting on a learned command or a trained reflex. It was acting on an innate understanding of suffering. With a strong, determined push, the Labrador retriever plunged into the water. Its entry was not reckless, but calculated and deliberate. It swam not directly against the devastating current, which would have meant instant exhaustion, but with an intelligent diagonal cut. It cleverly used the pushing force of the flow to guide its body toward the struggling baby chimpanzee. This strategic and courageous action stunned Liam into silence. The entire troop of chimpanzees also fell silent, watching. The sight of this loyal dog willingly embracing danger, placing the life of a helpless stranger above its own, sent a shockwave through the jungle. For a terrifying, heart-stopping moment, the muddy water swallowed the dark fur whole. The hearts of every watcher seemed to stop. When the dog finally surfaced, coughing, its eyes were fierce and intensely focused. It was utterly alone against the elements, driven by a single goal: rescue. Shadow's choice to abandon the safety of the shore for a life not its own was the ultimate gamble. The whole jungle held its breath, because the most critical phase of the rescue was about to begin. The moment of connection that would determine life or death. The Labrador retriever fought the current, its powerful kicks driving it ever closer to the rock. In that instant, the baby chimpanzee, exhausted and trembling, finally lost its grip. It began to drift, a tiny dark speck no longer resisting, carried into the vast brown tunnel of the flood. Just as the current began to pull it under, the Labrador retriever intercepted it. The dog deftly maneuvered its body in the water, turning slightly to offer a surface, a platform of warm fur. In a beautiful moment of pure cross-species understanding, The baby chimpanzee reached out a tiny wet hand and grabbed the Labrador retriever's thick, soaked fur, clinging tightly to its back like a desperate passenger finding its final lifeline. This was the central image. The Labrador retriever swimming with powerful, rhythmic strokes, carrying the baby chimpanzee safely on its back. The two were one unified entity, fighting the storm. The entire troop of chimpanzees was in absolute silence. Their huge alpha male stood at the edge of the bank, his eyes locked not on Liam, but on the brave, dark figure in the water. This was a primal assessment of trust, a quiet study of whether this Labrador retriever was friend or foe. For the troop, this was a baffling interruption of the natural order. The Labrador retriever turned, carrying its precious cargo, swimming back toward Liam. Its churning legs were a true engine of hope. Yet the current remained a relentless enemy, pushing them downstream, prolonging the agonizing suspense. A large, debris-laden log crashed into the dog's side, nearly dislodging the baby chimpanzee. But Shadow stayed true, absorbing the impact and pushing on. Every inch gained was a hard-fought battle. The baby chimpanzee clung tighter, its cheek pressed against the dog's wet neck, finding comfort and safety in this most unlikely of allies. Liam ran alongside the bank, shouting encouragement.
Come on!
His
Almost
voice
there.
hoarse with tension, yet filled with renewed hope. The heart of the jungle was beating in unison with the dog's desperate struggle. This incredible journey of survival now entered its absolute climax, where the dog's strength would be tested one final time. Liam spotted a break in the current, a small, muddy inlet near a cluster of thick mangrove roots. He plunged waist-deep into the less turbulent water. His hands outstretched, he grabbed the exhausted Labrador retriever first, helping it find purchase on the slippery bank, before carefully taking the shivering baby chimpanzee into his arms. He pulled both exhausted animals to solid ground. Shadow collapsed onto the mud, its chest heaving like a broken bellows. It was utterly spent, having nothing left to give. Immediately, the mother chimpanzee rushed forward. She cradled the baby chimpanzee close, gently rocking it, whimpering with a deep, cleansing sound of relief. The small life was safe, returned from the river's deadly grip. The troop of chimpanzees then quietly melted back into the dense jungle, the mother holding the baby chimpanzee tight, disappearing into the curtain of green. Canopy, you're a hero, Shadow.
It's okay, boy. We're almost there.
This powerful story shows us that true connection isn't about matching species. It's about matching hearts. Kindness is a language every living creature understands, and the jungle had just spoken volumes.